Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Badger 360 Universal Airbrush. This is the second airbrush loaned to me by my friend Derek, and I've actually been a long time Iwata user, although my very first airbrush was a Badger, but for the last 20 years or so I've been using Iwata airbrushes. And so branching out into Badger has been kind of fun, and being able to experiment with the things that are out there has been kind of exciting. But let me talk a little bit about this. This is sort of a general purpose and a really general purpose airbrush. It's not a fine line brush, although you can get a pretty decent line with it. But the tip is 0.75, which is much larger than any recommendation I would make for wanting to get in close and doing miniatures, which is primarily what I'm concerned with. But if you're doing standard model kits or game vehicles, terrain pieces, anything like that, this airbrush would serve you just fine. But what really makes this special is, and where the sort of the 360 and the 360 name comes in, is that this whole assembly up here can rotate all the way around. And so while it is a gravity feed when it's set like this, when you turn it like that and add a bottle, it becomes a bottom feed. And so that means that you essentially get two airbrushes in one, because sometimes you want the addition of the bottle so that you can use a lot of paint without having to constantly go back and refill your cup. Now, of course, you can get gravity feed airbrushes with larger cups on top, but this is another way to sort of solve that problem. The other thing I noticed while using this is that you can utilize this ability to make it easier for you to get into weird positions. Now this isn't, if I'm painting a miniature, I'm doing this or this, but I'm not really worried about, contorting myself into odd positions. But I could see where when I was working doing movie models and doing a lot of production work and having to get into weird locations at times, where it would have been nice to be able to have an airbrush where I could tilt this at an angle and come in sideways, or come at myself like this and watch where the needle is in relation to my workpiece. And I played around with that a little bit today, and I found it to be kind of fun. So there's not too much to say. I mean, it's a good airbrush. I had no trouble getting a fairly fine line with it. The advertising for it says it'll do a pencil line, but that would be a pretty thick pencil to my mind. So here's just some scribbles that I did that kind of show the finest line I was able to get versus about the widest width that you're going to get it. And this is just playing around with it for a short time. And well, actually this is probably a little bit finer, the line that I'm talking about. But I would have to say that for most of the years that I've been using an airbrush, I've used an Iwata Eclipse, which has a smaller tip. And I could say easily that I could have been using this and gotten just as good results with that. And honestly, I kind of like the fact that it's got a little heavier tip, even though it's exposed. This is one of the only airbrushes I've seen where the needle actually comes past the crown as a standard, without anything there to protect it. I don't mind that so much because it's a heavier tip. But even though it has the heavier tip, I think it would perform as well as my Eclipse in most circumstances. Now I gotta say there's one element to this brush and to the other brush that I tried recently that was also a Badger and that differentiates it from the Iwata, and that is the air valve is strictly controlled by having pressure in the hose. So for example, right now, if I push on that, nothing happens. And that's because there's no air in the line. But now that I've turned the air on, but the action of that valve is on and off. It's very binary. With my Iwatas, there's a spring in there that provides sort of back pressure, which means that in addition to on and off, you can kind of feather the amount of air that's coming out of there. It's not an easy thing to do, and it takes some practice, but over the years I've sort of discovered that I can do that, but not so with either of the two Badgers that I tried. I don't know if that's a standard function of the Badger airbrush, but there you are. Something else I like about this brush is the needle has this ball at the end that you can use to grab it and pull it back, so that when you're doing cleaning, you can quickly and easily work the needle to sort of get your cleaner through. Although, you know, with the side also being open, you could also do it this way. And I guess the reasoning for this is that you can loosen the needle and then draw it out without having to remove the back. And a lot of times, I mean, the features on an airbrush are all about making your life easier, because the thing that I've seen force people to give up on using an airbrush in the past is the fact that they can be fiddly and kind of a pain in the butt to use. So anything that they do to make it easier is obviously a good thing, and that's really what this is about. This is about giving you options for how you want to use your airbrush without having to go to a separate airbrush every time, you know, you have a new project or a new, you know, area that you need to get into, or you have something big versus something small. And so that's really what that's all about. So again, a good general purpose airbrush. I mean, I would recommend it, especially since you can find these well under $100. And I will even provide a link down in the description, which you can follow if you're interested in pricing one out. I don't have too much else to say. It's a great brush, and you should consider it. But it's not a fine line brush. Keep that in mind. If you're looking for something that's going to get you in really tight on a 28mm mini, and you know you're going to want to do that kind of work, this is not for that. This is essentially for everything else. And that's it. I'll talk to you later.